everybody, it's the Got News podcast, Tuesday, I want to say the 12th, 12th of April. Wow, do I have some interesting stuff to talk about today. Okay, let's begin, shall we? BuzzFeed, it's in trouble, or as I like to call it, the cat pornography website. BuzzFeed and I have been enemies since time immemorial. We really hate one another. I mean, I think there's really no other way to put it. In particular, I hate Rosie Gray, who is an Oppo slut, who received opposition research from Cory Booker's team when I was looking into Cory Booker not living in Newark, New Jersey, when he in fact doesn't live in Newark, New Jersey. And Rosie Gray went out of her way to go and take Oppo on me that was given by the Cory Booker campaign to her to just malign me and make stuff up about me. And it's really kind of like shameful, and that's sort of, that's the culture of like BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed has always been one step away from a major lawsuit, which would crush its news division, which no one really consumes anyways because it's a cat pornography website. They've always been one mistake away from suffering Gawker's fate. Rather disturbingly, a few years ago, they outed a young man who had retained legal counsel in the University of Virginia rape case. And that was after we knew that it was a hoax. I mean, this is a shameful, disgusting website. Now, of course, BuzzFeed is in trouble. Why are they in trouble? Well, BuzzFeed, which is on Series F, Series F funding, it missed its 2015 revenue target by 32%, and it slashed its internal 2016 revenue target by 50%, from 500 million to 250 million. Already, we're hearing reports about how BuzzFeed has frozen hiring. We're hearing stories about how basically the dog is not eating the dog food anymore, that the paid promotions that they do, the sponsored content that they've been doing hasn't really been working, where they try and basically hide the division between news and advertorial. And BuzzFeed has extremely just low ethics. I mean, this is what they've been doing for quite some time. They got dinged in the UK over doing this. And they're basically a tool of a kind of hipster millennial tool of the power structure in media and in government, but by and large. McKay Coppins, who is a reporter at the cat pornography website, has routinely gotten stories wrong. He routinely is fed Oppo by people who don't know what they're doing, and he just runs with it. He just goes for it. He never even went to Tampa, never even went to Tallahassee for his book, The Wilderness Years, about the Republican Party. So, I mean, this is the kind of thing that we should come to expect. I mean, the one guy there whose work I do kind of like, though again an Oppo slut, is this guy Andrew Kaczynski, who did very good work, kind of exposing the hypocrisy and silliness on the part of the Republicans in the 2012 cycle. But his stuff has really lately been kind of boring, kind of paint by numbers kind of stuff. And it's just kind of interesting. It's interesting that BuzzFeed, which was supposed to be this new property, that changed the game, that the Financial Times reports is collapsing. Now, BuzzFeed, of course, is not alone in collapsing in the new media landscape. You've got Gawker, which just got the crap beat out of it with an extremely disgustingly large fuck up in the form of going after Hulk Hogan, who just won I think it was like $120 million judgment against them. Of course, Gawker rather doesn't have anywhere near that amount of money. From what I've been told, they structured the deal with debt rather than anything kind of more large than that. And so, I mean, it's pretty crazy, like what we actually see going on in the kind of new media landscape of which we're all now a part. And it's interesting. These are sites that have routinely maligned me. They've routinely made up things about me. They've routinely made up things about people on the alt-right, or basically people who are critics of the current liberal order. And they've essentially served as enforcers of a sort of PC bullshit worldview. One that is pro-social justice warrior, one that is pro-feminist, one that is anti-male, one that is anti-white, one that is anti-conservative. And that's more or less like what BuzzFeed does. And it's interesting, BuzzFeed has this very long history of essentially in the news division being run by cucks, by people, or by neoconservatives, if you will, the form of people like Ben Smith, who the Obama administration more or less turned into stenographers for his campaign in 2008. Ben Smith would always whitewash any criticisms of Obama. He would always kind of go out of his way to help the Obama team. And he's the one supposedly leading their news division, which I think accounts for like less than 10% of their total traffic. Everything else is sort of cat pornography or advertorial masquerading as news or masquerading as information. Now, we've already talked about on this podcast how Shane Smith, who's the CEO of Vice, is a serial con man who has made up a bunch of things about his past. He lied about being a foreign correspondent in Bosnia, when of course he was teaching English in Hungary, and he's essentially a pathological liar, and he's gotten in trouble for that. Vice's numbers are off their peak. He's gotten in trouble for wasting investor cash. I think he'll probably, in a just world, he'd end up in jail, whether he will or not, for stealing basically investor cash and consuming it for himself. Sort of remains to be seen. But why do I find this so interesting? Why do I find the collapse of BuzzFeed interesting? Well, for starters, there's an inherent tension in the media between the interests of advertisers and the interests of the audience. And of course, all these properties, they need money to basically sustain the salaries, the inflated salaries on the part of a lot of these journalists. And so they've gone to places like venture capitalists. And if you'll recall, in the venture capitalist world, they want to get a return on their capital. And so you see things like Mashable, which are being forced to fire people, get rid of their entire news division. And you're seeing this happen more and more often. HuffPost Live has cut itself. The Guardian has fired a bunch of people. Meanwhile, sites like mine, sites like Mike Cernovich's and others are doing millions and millions of page views, even though they're essentially one-man operations with volunteers or with small contractors. And what's interesting is that basically no one has connected the fact that these are advertising supported properties to the fact that to why they're sucking. And what's interesting in our media landscape is that most properties that are on the internet that you think of, or in media generally that you think of as properties that are essentially, they're all basically bought and paid for by billionaires. Carlos Slim, of course, controls the New York Times. Rupert Murdoch controls News Corp, which produces Fox News, and of course the Wall Street Journal editorial page. Jeff Bezos owns Amazon, or owns a chunk of Amazon, also owns the Washington Post. Jared Kushner, who is the son-in-law of Donald Trump, owns the New York Observer. We could go on and on and on. The Rebecca and Bob Mercer are the largest shareholders of Breitbart. Billionaire donors to Ted Cruz. Contrary to what you may have heard, Breitbart, money is pro-Cruz, not pro-Trump. And so this is the kind of environment we're in right now, where essentially everyone is a tool of some billionaire shelling out and paying for things, except for those of us who receive our money from the public at large, like yours truly, in the form of research grants, in the form of individuals paying me to do research. So this is the kind of backdrop of what we've been up to here at Got News. Now, why is this interesting? Well, there's a big problem that's emerged, and the problem is no one knows how to fund any of these sites. No one knows how to actually take care of them. No one knows how to foster them. And the problem is that these sites are no longer really all that interesting. There's no desire to really build news or build content that's interesting to the readers, enough to get the readers fired up so that they actually subscribe, so they actually spend money, so they actually pay to get more information. And the reason for this is that obviously there's the part where people were converting from the newspaper world to the digital world and not really sure kind of how to make that transition. Do you basically just take the newspaper and just stick it online? But partly it's because there's just been a lack of imagination a lack of understanding that the new media provides all sorts of different ways of storytelling, provides different ways of communicating. And what's been interesting is to see the sort of new media properties in the form of like Reddit, form of some of the Twitter, excuse me, the social media properties. What's been interesting is seeing how these companies more or less do exactly the same stupid thing that that we've been starting to see. How they do the exact same stupid thing that we see the news media doing. So, for instance, Reddit. There was a New York Times article. Let me pull it up just so I can get it exactly right. New York Times, Reddit, New York Times story. Where is it? Obviously, they've changed. Oh, here we are. Reddit steps up anti-harassment measures with new blocking tool. Mike Isaac, April 6, New York Times. You'll know, by the way, that I don't link to the New York Times after they made up some stuff about me. I just don't do it. It's just not my way. I'm not going to do it. And what's interesting here in this case of Reddit is, again, you see Reddit doing the same thing Twitter did, which is essentially trying to turn their new property into a social justice warrior vehicle to basically censor. Whenever somebody says, by the way, that they're going to have an anti-harassment tool, they're essentially saying we're going to use this tool to censor people. They don't want to say that they're censors, so they say, oh, we're against harassment. What is harassment? It's harassment, so anything we say it is. Oh, okay. So that's basically the argument. You see this with Twitter, you see this, and essentially all of these properties are VC-backed things. So what they're trying to do is basically take LP money given to them, trying to grow the network. And the way to get everyone to participate in the network is they say, oh, you can have free speech on this network. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. And so what ends up happening as these networks grow, because everyone likes the excitement of all these conversations going, Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, and what ends up happening is, in order to keep growing, these networks need more hosts, they need more bodies, they need more people to come join. They're a bit like Ponzi schemes in that respect. So that's why in recent years you've seen Twitter, you've seen Reddit, you push a more aggressive approach to grow, and that's meant going in a more social justice direction. They've essentially listened to the media people who say that they should be more accommodating, they should allow more women in, they should allow more progressive voices. And so what ends up happening is they get brought in and the whole thing goes to shit. Now that's not just my opinion. I mean, you can see it reflected in the stock price of Twitter over time, where Twitter's essentially become a corporate ad space place now. That's why they brought on this guy, Hugh Johnston, who is former CFO for PepsiCo. They brought him onto the board. That's basically what's been happening. Now, Reddit was essentially the home for young white men to screw around on the internet. It's overwhelmingly young, it's overwhelmingly white, it's overwhelmingly men. And this was the place where they talked about things that were of interest to them. But now it's being used to censor. So Vox Day and a number of other people, bloggers, writers, have been pointing out the rise of blacklists on the part of progressives against people like my co-founder, Pax Dickinson, over at Researcher, formerly a Business Insider. But essentially there's been a roving squad of progressives who have blacklisted the intelligent, largely white, largely male world that we're in now. And what's happening is they have banned the SJW list, I think is what they're calling it. They basically ban people from talking openly about this blacklist and blacklisting people who blacklist, which is kind of a clever kind of idea. You'll note that one of the things that makes the progressives the angriest is when you start doing to them what they've done to you. That's why they got so angry when I published the address of the New York Times reporters who exposed Darren Wilson. That's why they've got so angry when I published the name of Jackie Coakley, even though they have no problem outing people who retain counsel from BuzzFeed. So this is the kind of backdrop that we're in. Now, why does this matter? Why is this interesting? where are we going here? What am I talking about? Well, essentially, the more social justice a company signals, the more trouble it's in, the more trouble its business is in. And there's nothing inherently worthwhile about advertising. Advertising, though we have it on Got News in a limited way, just in case, to basically offset some of our costs, although it doesn't do much. I mean, frankly, you should donate and subscribe to Got News, subscribe to me. But nonetheless, this is the backdrop of what's going on. Now, you're getting smaller and smaller returns on ad sales. You're getting smaller and smaller returns because people just don't want to buy shit. They don't want to constantly go on the internet and have things being sold to them. That's why there's all this tech that's rising right now of ad blockers, and that's sort of the future. I mean, that's where we're going. And if you want to continue to get quality research, you're going to have to go and subscribe to people's Patreon accounts. You're going to have to donate money. You're going to go and have to basically buy the consequence that you want to see in the world. And this is going to be a lot more mercenary. It's going to be a lot more tribal. It's going to be a lot more vicious. And of course, this is some of the ideas, stuff like what's animated Researcher and what's animated some of my thinking on that down the line. But nonetheless, what's really going on with a lot of this stuff is these are Ponzi schemes. Social media is essentially a Ponzi scheme. And so too is a lot of the new media properties. They need more and more traffic, they need more and more people, and it never seems to occur to them that they might just run out of people. So for instance, Facebook is partnering, and Facebook's running around the world right now, and it's trying to, Mark Zuckerberg is meeting with the Chinese communists, he's meeting with Mexican La Raza activists, he's meeting with all these people. He's meeting with the German government to help the German government censor supposedly anti-Muslim speech. And what's interesting here is wherever Zuckerberg goes, you can see that he understands that demographically that's the future. So for instance, in the United States, the fastest growing population of immigrants are from Mexico. What side is Zuckerberg on? Zuckerberg's very much in favor of all these Mexicans coming in because they'll get Facebook accounts, and so he's seeing the future. He knows this is where it's all going. And so same thing with what's going on with the Muslims in Germany. He's working with the German government. That's right, a Jew is working with the German government to censor speech. And this is where things are going. He's working with the Chinese. He's going and meeting with the Chinese secret police to go and work with the Chinese to get a presence hold in Facebook because he needs more and more users. And he's working with Elon Musk and others about getting internet all around the world, trying to get internet all around the world to of course, get internet from all around the world so that he can have more people on the internet. More people on the internet means more ad revenue, even though we all know that Nigerians won't consume Facebook in quite the same way that Americans do, or that the West does. And when was the last time, of course, you bought anything you saw advertised on Facebook? Probably not very often. And so at some point the advertisers are going to get wary of this, and they're going to realize maybe Facebook is not all it's cracked out to be. And of course, you can find out whenever you advertise on Facebook that they'll down throttle you when you stop paying money. You won't be able to reach the people who you previously reached. It's a form of extortion. Same thing that sort of Yelp did. This is sort of like the culture that's emerged. And so Zuckerberg is running around. He's anti-Trump today. He's saying, all these walls are going up. It's dangerous. It's dangerous language. Don't give in to fear, as if he's a Jedi or something. Don't give in to fear. And he's going anti-Trump. He's saying, there are too many walls, even though he himself lives in a compound that has walls. He's anti-wall because he realizes that walls are going to restrict the movement of people, which is in turn going to restrict the number of people who get Facebook accounts, which is in turn going to affect his bottom line. This is where things are going. So he wants walls to be down because essentially Facebook is a global tool. He talks about this in David Kirkpatrick's book, The Facebook Effect, which I have around here somewhere. Similarly, they talk about the globalization of Twitter in this book by Nick Bilton, Hatching Twitter, quite interesting. But what people are not really realizing is there's a lot of problems with the way social media is going to be going in the future. Most of those problems are aware to those of us who know stuff about network theory, that know stuff about how crowds and markets work. This book by David Eastley and John Kleinberg, Networked Crowds and Markets. It's a textbook. I highly recommend reading it. It'll explain to you like how Facebook works, how Twitter works, and how a lot of the technology works that's out there. And it's quite interesting. I mean, more or less, what's happening is that this tech is in serious trouble, and this stuff is going to continue to be quite a problem for many years to come. Now, what does this all matter? Well, what matters is that we're entering this globalization movement where globalization is breaking down. Walls are going up all around Europe, maybe on the southern border of the United States, and people are going to be trying to protect what limited things they have. When countries are richer, they don't really care about legal immigrants, right? Because they're figuring like, screw it, we're rich, we can afford having some illegals. But what's happening right now is that the population as a whole is becoming poorer and poorer because globalization is breaking down. And so that's why you're seeing walls go up. That's why you're seeing billionaires buy private islands, which of course are going to be defended. That's sort of our future, and there's really sort of nothing we can do to stop it. And what we can do instead is sort of bet on the trends that will make us richer, because we'll be betting on walls going up, we'll be betting on private militaries, we'll be betting on all of these things, ethno-nationalism as opposed to multiracial republics, all of these trends that are essentially being helped along by the internet. And that's ultimately why people like Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook are going and they're using algorithms to kick people like me off of Facebook for making jokes about Muslims. Can't make jokes about Muslims. Muslims are preferred class. They're the future of Facebook. They're the future of the West. And so that's sort of what's going on there. Now, I did want to kind of move forward a little bit, and this podcast has gone on for a little bit longer than I wanted it to, 22 minutes and counting. There is a new article that was written by, I want to say this girl's name is Caitlin Dewey. She's younger. I think she's my age, actually. I don't know. But she's kind of a bitch. Like, I'm just totally honest about it. And she's written a number of things about me over the years using text speak and a bunch of other bullshit. And what she's done is she's basically been like the millennial person over at Washington Post. Now remember, Washington Post gets all of its money from Jeff Bezos, and so it's basically a super PAC. They won't call it a super PAC, but that's what it is. It's a super PAC on behalf of a billionaire. And this woman, Caitlin Dewey, has written this new article. And it's worth reading to you. I just want to read it to you right now. And it's not that long. I'll read parts of it and jump around. And essentially, she's talking about the new opposition research. And this new opposition research is the kind of thing that, frankly, I have made money off of, that I support. And she's trying to frame it all as harassment because she's concerned about it. The future is a dark place for her. She's worried. What is Caitlin Dewey worried about? Well, she's worried that crowds of people are organizing on Reddit, on 4chan, through me at Got News, and they're organizing to reveal new things. And here's the title of it. This horrifying and newly trendy online harassment tactic is ruining careers. And this is what she says. There are literal textbooks for online harassment, the original dating back to 1999. These ruin life guides include tactics from doxing and swatting to placing endangering or annoying ads in online classifieds. As popular as those techniques remain, however, online harassers have learned that they can cause far more damage with slightly less flashy and more methodical approach. You might even say the hottest new trend in harassment is opposition research. Now, see what she's trying to do here is she's trying to basically try to ruin people for daring to do research. And she's leaking the things like on Reddit and how people are hunting down and researching people who are not of their tribe, who are social justice warriors. They're exposing how deviant these people are in real life. And it's got her concerned. It's got her spooked. And rightly so, because she's basically an ally of theirs. And so she's pointing out this victim, the latest victim, Allison Rapp, formerly a spokesperson for Nintendo, spokeswoman for Nintendo of America. Now, Rapp is in trouble because she was fired from Nintendo because she was an escort in her evenings, and she is an escort, and she is basically that's why she was fired. You can't work for a children's company and also be an escort. And I believe her husband is also an escort. I mean, God only knows what that life's like. And of course, she's running around and she's she's upset about Kotaku in action. She's upset about 8chan harassing Zoe Quinn and Paul, and that this is the kind of thing that she's worried about. Zoe Quinn, of course, is a notorious fraud who slept with her sources, and of course, this is the environment we're in. And of course, she goes and recycles the totally discredited rumor about me that I shit on the floor in college, when in fact I actually saved somebody's life and was commended for doing so. When somebody was sick, I went and carried them. Now, of course, she maligns me, and she says, oh, of course, this tactic is terrible. I mean, they even do it to Chuck Johnson. Thanks for the defense, of course. This is a bitch who lied and said that I'm a far-right mega troll who, and I've argued that homosexuality caused an Amtrak derailment. No, I pointed out that the guy was homosexual. Homosexuals have higher rates of suicide, that it's a relevant form of inquiry. But nonetheless, this is the kind of thing that we mistake for journalism today. And it's interesting. She's sort of arguing, Dewey is arguing that this stuff's really dangerous. We can't allow the hoi polloi to actually go and do journalism. And of course, we all know the real reason. The real reason is that they're afraid of the future. And the future is one in which the comment sections rule, one in which the alt-right rules, one in which the people who do the research end up ruling, and in which crowds getting together and organizing through financing and then all the rest of it, where they get together and they are the ones who start calling the agenda, and not basically 20-something bloggers who work for the Washington Post. It's kind of all I wanted to say today. Of course, the future of online media is us at Got News. The future is people at Kotaku in Action. The Ralph Retort has some great stuff on this. Highly recommend doing your own research, because that's how you're ultimately free. And if you guys like these podcasts, let me know. Subscribe. Donate at gotnews.com/donate. Help me out on the research side. We can work together. I often have projects where I hire people. So that's kind of where we are right now, and look forward to hearing from you off camera. Thanks so much.